I'm Steve Plach, and I'll be your host for this edition of Nonprofit Spotlight. Nonprofit Spotlight is a production of the Volunteer Advisory Committee here at Community Television, and each month we highlight and spotlight a nonprofit organization in our community that's doing great work, and we are really delighted to have with us Nina Simon, who is the Executive Director of the Museum of Art and History, because this month, we're talking about the Santa Cruz Museum of Art and History. So welcome, Nina.
Thank you, Steve. It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you. And we have a short video because there are so many things happening that we'd like to give our audience just a little bit of an overview, a glimpse of what's going on. And so we'll take this video and then we'll come back and we'll talk about all the exciting things that are going on.
Sounds great.
I'm Jonathan Hicken, the Director of Development and Partnerships here at the MA, and get ready for a tour of the new Abbott Square. So here we are at Cooper Street, entering the new Abbott Square. Of course, we've got the classic octagon here. That's not going anywhere. At first, it's going to be a puppet shop, and in a few months or maybe a year, it's going to be incorporated with some restaurants. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a minute. But what you're seeing here up on the wall is a new mural going up by Thomas Campbell. He's a local artist from Bonnie Doon, internationally renowned, and he agreed to take on this project to make this new space warm and welcoming and an embodiment of what Santa Cruz is all about. The first thing you'll see when you come into the new Abbott Square is all of this new public seating. You're not going to have to go into the museum. You're not going to have to buy any food from the markets. You can just come and enjoy some sunshine and some art activities, performances, you name it. It's going to be happening here nearly every single day. There's going to be, over on this side, a stage where community members will come in and show off their creativity. You can get involved too. And of course, on this side, there's going to be the marketplace. We're now in the Abbott Square Market. There's going to be 5 restaurants, including pizza, oysters, poke, companion and cat and cloud coffee, a popsicle bar, West African vegan cuisine, and 2 bars. There's going to be a wine and local beer bar and a new cocktail bar. So combine that with the public seating, indoor, outdoor, and the performances out in Abbott Square Plaza. This is going to be the place to gather in downtown. The MA is introducing Abbott Square to the Santa Cruz County community, but we certainly didn't do this alone. This xylophone structure is a commemoration to everybody who contributed to making this project happen. Behind me is the home of the Future Seeker Garden. In the back corner of Abbott Square is a family-friendly, really safe place for families to gather in this green oasis in downtown Santa Cruz. You can imagine kids playing in the greenery while the parents have a drink here in the bar. You can imagine family yoga classes here or hands-on art activities back here, all designed for kids and their families.
So that's just a glimpse of all the fantastic things that are happening. And before we really get into describing, this incredibly ambitious project and all the good work that's being done, I want to share a personal experience. As you know, friends of mine and I host dinners for the less fortunate folks in Santa Cruz every Thanksgiving and Christmas. And while we were able to have Christmas Eve dinners in previous years, we really wanted to have something on Christmas because sadly there really isn't much for people who are less fortunate in Santa Cruz on Christmas Day. So we're kind of casting about for a place to look, and because of my friend Sandino Gomez, who hosts a show with me here and is on your staff there, I went into the MA. And from the time that I went into the MA, it could not have been a more pleasurable experience. Your events coordinator, Catalyst, Diana Kapsner, is absolutely the best. And the event itself was nothing less than wonderful. So I just wanted to have an opportunity to thank you and your staff and the MA for not only opening your doors to less fortunate people in Santa Cruz, but opening your hearts as well. So that was a wonderful thing, and we really do appreciate it. That's the kind of community spirit that I think, embodies what the MA really is. So let's talk, enough of that. Let's talk about this terrific program, this project you've got going on here. For people who aren't as familiar with it as maybe people who've looked on the website or followed along, give us a little bit about how the vision was generated, and, and how the project was really developed.
Sure. Well, Steve, you're just telling this great story about the Christmas dinner, which happened inside the MA. I think over the last several years, our focus has really been how do we invite the community into the museum to really make it feel like it's our museum. And with the Abbott Square project, we're sort of doing the converse, and we're saying how do we take the energy, the creativity, the community inside the museum out into public space. And so we really see Abbott Square not as a next door project, but as an expansion and as an opportunity for us to push beyond our walls with the creativity and culture happening within. Ever since I came to the MA in 2011, there's been this desire to connect this incredible museum as much as possible to the life of downtown.
Right.
And no matter how welcoming we make the museum, there will always be some people who aren't going to walk in the doors. And I kept seeing how when we did events outside, whether it be the Glow Festival in October, or whether it be Dia de los Muertos, the festival going up the street, I saw how when you take art and history outside, it invites public engagement with it on a different level. Because you don't have to choose to walk into the museum and experience it. You just happen to be having a sandwich, going downtown with your family, and wow, there's this fire festival going on, or wow, people are singing Oaxacan traditional songs. And so I think we became increasingly interested in this idea that if what we're trying to do is to use art and history to build community, we can't just do that inside our four walls. We have to take that out to where the community is, and that starts right out there on our front porch in Abbott Square.
And this is a wonderful expression of that, and I will say that one of my first experiences with the expansion kind of out into the community with the MA, and my experience really is relatively limited, was again my good friend Sandino Gomez, who would be doing pop-up museums of various things we have, and all of a sudden he's doing something that is extended. Museum Art and History is here, they're doing a pop-up museum. Wonderful community building events and things that draw people in, and say, hey, I want to be part of that, and oh, Museum of Art and History, oh yes.
Well, and I think it's very unusual that we decided and our board decided, yes, let's undertake a $5 million capital campaign project where we're not adding 1 foot to gallery space. We're not adding any classroom space. It's not about making the inside of our building better. It's about taking this outside and about inviting more people, more diverse people to be connected to art and history and to the culture that brings us together as a community.
And I think that's an exciting aspect of it. I have for some time, talked about downtown as a community, as a neighborhood, as something we really need to enliven, to be more vibrant, to be more inviting.
Absolutely.
And this is one way to really do that. And I think a lot of people, in a lot of ways, have tried to make that a more inviting space, to make it a more vibrant space, to make it a space that we can all really enjoy and participate in and engage. And we were talking earlier about our good friend and Councilmember David Terrazas, who's been talking about enlivening the Abbott Square space for some period of time. And I say, David, what's going on? What's going on? And little did I know that all this stuff was really happening. The vision had been generated, that the project was being developed. And I was saying also that when I was going down Front Street, I just happened to see the mural. And it was because of Jonathan and the lead-in that we saw that I was, oh, there's a mural going up, and today I stopped and I go, holy cow, it's a wonderful expression of art and liveliness. It's really bringing people's eyes and hearts and engagement in the community.
Yeah, there's a term happening across the country called creative placemaking, and the idea is that you make places more vibrant, more diverse, more economically successful, using art and creativity. And you can look in Santa Cruz at things like the River Arts Festival also is doing this. And so our whole approach with Abbott Square is, yes, let's create a great creative heart for our downtown, a great public space, but let's use our creativity, our art, our history, our culture to anchor that so it makes us more aware, more proud, more connected to what our community's about. And you asked when this project started. In a lot of ways it started in 2012 when we started doing these community workshops. But in some ways, it started in 1989 because when we did these community workshops in 2012 and we asked people, what do we need downtown? What do we need from public space downtown? so many people talked about the Cooper House. I wasn't here before the earthquake.
Before my time as well.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
But the stories I've heard about the ways people connected around the Cooper House was really, I think, while we're not trying to replicate that, we're trying to bring that spirit forward. You know, it's food, it's drink, it's music, it's community coming together outdoors. And there was this sense I heard from people of all walks of life that everybody was there, that all kinds of people were coming downtown to be part of that space. And so while this project has started in just the last few years, it's really tapping into a very deep-seated need for public space and for a town square in our community.
And it's interesting you make that observation because I was not here in 1989, but my brothers and my mother lived here. And so when I would come to Santa Cruz, it did seem like there was a very much a welcoming vibe. It was very art, you know, very music, there was culture, and there was that kind of thing that existed. And I think, I don't know that it has went away necessarily, but it hasn't been as developed as we're trying to do now. And
Well,
that's
and frankly,
that's what the thing is.
What I've seen is that the most recent recession has caused a real stress downtown where we've gotten to a place that I'm concerned about, where there's this sense that economic vitality and creative vitality are oppositional forces. And in fact, they're not. They're absolutely complementary. But when you see things like this blue boxes thing, or issues around street closure for festivals, or what you can do, where you can sit downtown, it's all rooted in this question about how do we have a healthy, successful downtown? And I really believe that artists and public space, being able, as Jonathan mentioned, just to sit and chat with people and to enjoy our space together is vital to having a strong community downtown. And I'd hate to see us regulate ourselves out of something that I think is so core to this community's identity.
And I do think that this project is going to be a catalyst for that.
I hope so.
And it's something that everybody really should find out more about. But let's talk about the restaurants and things you got going on. Let's talk about some of the specifics of it, because that was fascinating to me, particularly when Sanduna gave me a little tour and Jonathan with the roll-in. I said, 5 restaurants, my goodness, this is wonderful.
Well, the project started just focused on the plaza. But then when we started talking to community members about what they wanted to see from a town square downtown, people would say to us, art is great, history is great, programs for families are great, but if you don't have food and drink, that's what's going to bring me back again and again. And so then we started talking about, okay, so maybe there's a restaurant attached to Abbott Square. But we realized, the diversity and the eclectic nature of what's happening in the MA, the reason the MA has grown so much in terms of who's coming and who's involved is because there are so many different kinds of things happening there. There are in Christmas, there were toy trains and the screaming hand upstairs
it was amazing. I'll tell you.
It's all happening in the same space.
There's no question about it.
We felt like when we were talking about food in Abbott Square, we had to take that same attitude that what the MA does is about the creative collision of a lot of different tastes, backgrounds, cultures, expectations. And so rather than have one restaurant, we wanted to look at how we could create really a vibrant marketplace, incorporating lots of different foods, lots of different chefs and stories from our county. And so we ended up increasing our ambition from just the plaza to just the plaza and a restaurant to a plaza and this marketplace. And so, that building right next to the museum is the former county jail building, 725 Front Street. The MA's been managing that building for years as commercial real estate, so basically office space. And so we worked out over the last few years, we negotiated with all our ground floor tenants to either move them to another part of the building or they moved off-site so that we could loosen up that whole space to be this marketplace. And you mentioned David Terrazas. It was really his vision to say, hey, don't just focus it on Abbott Square, push it towards Front Street. And you'll see in what we're doing, we're planning to have tables and chairs out on Front Street as well, up on the plaza. And I really believe that if you're coming off Pacific Avenue, seeing that there's more energy happening in Abbott Square, if you walk through that Cooper House Arcade into Abbott Square, if you walk through the market to Front Street, it starts moving you to look at what can we do on the river? What can we do on Ocean Street? How do we keep building the creative community we want to have? So yes, we decided we were going to do this marketplace, and then we realized, okay, we're a museum. We're pretty good at bringing people together. We're pretty good at doing big events, at art and history. We don't know anything about food. And so we said, we know this is important to our community, but we also know it's a risky business. And so we really said, we need to look for a partner who has expertise to take this on. And so we, put out an RFP and looked for who is that master tenant who can
Right.
do the food.
Sure.
And so John McHenry the fourth, who grew up here in Santa Cruz, who's been living in San Jose, who created San Pedro Market downtown.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, in San
space.
Jose.
Oh, fantastic.
So
space.
he was
Yeah.
the developer behind that.
Yeah.
He was now excited to move back to Santa Cruz and to take on this project. So he's bringing all the expertise from that project, which is, you know, 3 or 4 times as big as the project in Abbott Square. But he's so excited to be working with us as a partner and taking his expertise in to really make this a great space.
fantastic.
And he's been really working to recruit terrific local chefs to create some really unique food concepts in Abbott Square. And that will be both in the ground floor of the office building and eventually in the Octagon as well.
Yeah, I know that when I was in law practice in San Jose and Santa Clara, actually, I discovered San Pedro Square and how that enlivened all of downtown
Huge
San Jose. That really made a huge change
Yes.
there. But you know, historically, the concept of a town square as a draw, as a cultural center of a city, of a community, you know, is very strong, and it's a it's a concept that you can use and say, you know, we want to have people be involved, we want to have people engaged. And I noticed one of the things that you're doing is soliciting, you know, community members to be engaged, not only to donate, but to be volunteers, to be part of this.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah, and I think one of the things that makes this project really special is a project like San Pedro Square Market, that's a fully private business. And because in this case, we have this very unique partnership between a private business, the market, Abbott Square Market, the mall, which is a nonprofit, and then the whole property is county property. It makes this this private, nonprofit, public partnership, which means that things like what Jonathan was talking about, the fact that the seating will be open to everybody. You know, the reason the mall raised with our community $5 million for this project is it was really important to us that we weren't creating a private business next to the museum, but that we were creating a creative town square, a hub to bring people together. Food is a part of it, but as much as that are the ongoing performances, workshops, festivals, art experiences that are free and open to everybody in Abbott Square.
And I think that sense of inclusiveness, you really can't be projected from the program that you have. It has to be projected from the people who are visioning the program, people who are developing the program, and I think that's credit to you and the people who have been involved with this, that we want this to be an inclusive space, want this to be an inclusive part of our community, and connect Pacific Avenue and Front Street, and maybe at some point connect the river. I, for years, have said, you know, we can't turn our back on the river forever. You got to have the river and incorporate that as part of our downtown experience.
Absolutely.
And so it's wonderful, but that sense of inclusiveness is particularly important, and it's evident to me that that's really what's going on.
Yeah, thank you. Well, and that's been something we've basically been piloting at the MA over the last 6 years, that there's so much programming that happens at the museum that is created in partnership with community groups who are now so excited to have new places to work in Abbott Square. So for example, Santa Cruz Public Libraries, they don't really have a great outdoor space downtown to do story time. They're going to be using the Secret Garden in Abbott Square.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, to do family story
wonderful.
time, both in English and in Spanish a couple times a month. And we look forward to many other community partners saying, gosh, we want to put on this kind of festival, or we want to offer this kind of workshop. We've been talking about programs like a program called Possibility Picnics, where if anybody from the community wants to brainstorm something with others from the community, they can sign up for a lunch slot where people can brown bag it or get some food from the market and sit down and really explore how are we going to build a stronger community, because that's really what the MA is all about.
That's the wonderful part, I think, about the MA that it really has struck me, is they want to know, what's your idea?
Yes.
You know, what do you want to do? How do you want to be a part of this? How do you want to express your creativity or your cultural heritage or your art or your whatever? And so I think that's been very welcome, and that's generated that through, I think, your leadership and leadership of others, you know, who have wanted that to be the kind of space and the kind of project that really can happen.
Absolutely. I mean, we really see the MA and certainly Abbott Square as a platform for the diverse forms of art and history in our community, where sure, we're bringing in some great things from outside as well, whether that be artists who are exhibiting who are coming from far away, but we're mashing that up in a way that is very unique to our community and is very community sourced. So that's absolutely at the heart of what we do.
So now there's going to be performance spaces as well, right?
Yeah, that's right. So there'll be performance spaces both in the kind of front main seating area in Abbott Square, as well as in the back in the Secret Garden. You know, there are some kinds of performances, like a band, that can happen while people are eating and moving around, but there are other things like a one-act play that really don't do well in a very casual environment.
What a wonderful idea.
So the Secret Garden is going to be a great place for those more intimate programming, because it's more connected to the museum and to the kind of back area. It's a place for focused experiences. You know, with the Ma over the last few years through the first and third Friday festivals we've been doing,
yeah.
we've gotten very sensitive to what do different kinds of artists need to really have a successful interaction with their community.
Yeah.
And we know that you need different kinds of spaces, loud spaces, intimate spaces, family-focused spaces, depending on what's going on. So we feel like Abbott Square is going to add to the menu of options for organizations.
And it sounds like maybe the Enchanted Garden would be a wonderful children's space to have a
Yes.
really, a beautiful, enchanted children's experience back there. Would be wonderful.
We hope
you know,
so.
And something that, frankly, we don't have now downtown. you know.
Absolutely, and actually it's interesting. So I have a 3.5-year-old.
Oh,
when we
okay.
started the Abbott Square project, I didn't have a kid. And I remember in 2012, 2013, when we were doing community conversations about downtown, one of the groups that kind of blew my mind was we had a group of moms who live out in the county who basically talked about how they don't come downtown, how they feel like they would like to bring their kids downtown, but they don't feel welcome or they don't feel safe. And one thing they talked about was not having a landing place
Yeah, there you go.
downtown.
Exactly.
And I, at the time, not being a mom at the time, I was thinking, well, you can just go across the bridge to San Lorenzo Park. Like, why, what? But then now having a 3.5-year-old, I understand how going to the park is a whole experience in itself.
Right.
And what they were talking about, what they've experienced in places over the hill, is there's a place where you can have your retail, your food, your entertainment experience, and your kid can play, and it's all part of the same experience, and that they're looking for that. And I really think this has social implications for downtown,
No question.
as well as economic ones.
Yeah.
One of the groups who's interested in using the Secret Garden is Sutter Maternity. They
really?
host a new moms group,
I'll be
and
there.
right now they host it either in the hospital basement or in the parking lot. And so they came to me and said, gosh, we'd really like new moms to meet in the
Wonderful.
Secret Garden.
Wonderful.
And not only is that great for Abbott Square and for the Secret Garden and for these moms, but imagine how it shifts downtown if a few times a week the stroller brigade is walking up and down Pacific Avenue, or if on Sundays families are saying, let's go downtown and we'll stop at Abbott Square to play and we'll also go do these other things. There have been these studies about how many people live in our community and spend their money outside of our community, and this helps drive people to come downtown.
Yeah. Live locally, spend locally, contribute locally, and I can
Yes.
tell you that it's interesting. They did have a stroller brigade kind of a thing over in San Lorenzo Park that changed the whole character
Sure,
of San
I'm
Lorenzo
sure.
Park. And I wasn't
Absolutely.
necessarily involved with that, although I'm kind of an observer of what happens, around town, particularly in the park. But it changed the entire nature of how people were using the park, and so that's very important to have. Young families and children be able to come downtown, enjoy the experience, have a place, as you say, to land.
Yeah.
And I think when you're looking outside of this and say, well, I want to go downtown, but where am I going to be with my kids, my family, when I do get there?
Right.
It's wonderful. I want to get there, but when I get there, where am I going to be?
And Steve, I think this is even bigger than families with kids, because I think a lot of people, when they're just looking for a meetup space in
there you go.
downtown,
Sure.
it's not really obvious. I mean, unless you pick a store, let's meet at Bookshop Santa Cruz, let's meet at
Coffee roasting,
coffee
or,
roasting,
yeah,
whatever
yeah,
it is. We really feel like Abbott Square can be a place where you can just say, meet me in Abbott Square, and there's this sense that if you need to hang out for a little while, or if you want coffee and I want a tamale, we're in the right place. There are things that happen in Santa Cruz, like there's an architectural history walking tour where they're looking for just where do I meet up with my group.
Right.
And I think one of the challenges about especially bringing visitors to downtown is it's pretty opaque figuring out where do I start, where's the easiest place, as opposed to say the wharf or the boardwalk where it's really clear where it is.
Sure, of course, yeah.
And so I think that Abbott Square can become a landing place and a meetup spot for downtown, and really making our community life overt and happen in public.
And I think that's absolutely essential, and I think that the informational kiosks they have down there
Sure.
has really contributed to the
Yes,
visitors being able to
huge.
come and relax and say, I want to go somewhere. Oh, there's a kiosk. And
Right.
But Abbott Square in particular, when that dream is realized, there'll be something, I'm going to go to Abbott Square because I can go from there, I can go on the architectural tour, I can go here, I can go
Right.
there, I can get something to eat, I can go, there's something in the
Can hear
Enchanted
some
Garden,
music,
there's always
yep.
some music, there's some things happening. So one question I had for you is, now what's happening with Lulu's?
Sure. So as you know, Lulu's has multiple different coffee shops,
Right.
not just downtown, but also over in the Whole Foods parking lot and up in Scotts Valley as well.
sure.
So Lulu's was a tenant of ours in the Octagon for a long time,
Right, yeah.
and in the fall, Man3 decided that he was not going to renew his lease and decided to move on from the Octagon. Obviously, He has an incredible business that has a lot of great history in our community. We are sad to see it go from the Octagon.
But you're revisioning it now.
We are. So, I mean, frankly,
amazing.
it's the Lula's at the Octagon was a terrific business,
right.
But I'm also incredibly excited that now we have the whole property
wonderful.
to play with.
Yeah,
and so because this happened later than the rest of the project, what we've decided is the Octagon will become part of the market, but not right away, because we're just now starting the permitting process for the Octagon. So we reached out to the community and said, hey, we're going to make this open as an artist in residence space. And actually, in just a few weeks here, there's going to be a puppetry institute opening in the Octagon. And so for a few months, until the new construction starts in there, there will be this wonderful workshop where people can learn how to make their own puppets, and it's going to be a lot of fun and a way to jumpstart a new creative enterprise in Santa Cruz.
I think that's a very smart aspect of this particular project, because that's definitely an anchoring space.
No question. And it's the front door to Abbott Square.
No question.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
So we're excited to have all of that. And you know, you've probably seen in the pictures that one of the major changes that's happening to Abbott Square is we're expanding the deck out all the way to Cooper Street, and then around the Octagon, there's going to be deck all the way around that corner. And I think that corner by the Octagon is going to be a really pleasurable place to sit. It has better sun, and people love sitting up on a raised platform and kind of looking down at the traffic.
Course,
so I think that corner is going to be a really lovely part of the project.
And I do think that it's a terrific area to really have, you know, people to be able to sit and relax and enjoy and say, you know, I'm looking at all this, I want to go in and get something to eat now. So I want to go up there to a performance space, or I'm going to go over to the mall and
check out an exhibit.
I'm going to check out an exhibit, you know, so it gives them a jump off point. We've got a couple more minutes left. Is there anything that you want to leave our viewers with in terms of what we can do to help this project out, to volunteer, to donate, you know, anything like that? Let us know. Absolutely.
So the great news is that from a financial perspective, we were able, with the help of this community, to raise the $5 million to do this project. So it's a fully funded construction project, which is awesome, and it really ensures that this is going to be a project for our community. What we are working on now is filling it with the performances, the workshops, the activities. So we're certainly inviting people to financially support that, but we're also really looking for people to get involved, either by saying, hey, my band, my you know, juggling troupe, whatever it might be, would like to participate in Abbott Square. But also right now we're recruiting a new group of volunteers and interns at the museum. We're calling the Public Playmaking Troupe.
Great.
So we have a staff member, Emily Dobkin, incredibly creative young woman who has this new role as the public playmaking catalyst, and she really sees her role as engaging people playfully throughout Abbott Square and the Ma Atrium. And so she's recruiting a whole group of people to get involved with that. We'll also be inviting businesses that are interested in sponsoring specific kinds of programs, whether that be the Friday night music or whether that be a creative coffee hour or whatever it might be. We'd love for people to get involved.
Well, this project could not have a better ambassador. You know, thank you, Nina, for coming on and sharing all this with us. We'll look forward to this project as it goes along, and really terrific work in the community. We love having you here and love having you involved in this. Thanks very much for tuning in for this edition of Nonprofit Spotlight. Next month we'll be highlighting another nonprofit that does wonderful work, maybe not quite as wonderful as but still, nevertheless, they'll be here talking to me and you about this. So until next time, I'm Steve Plage. Good night. Goodbye. That was wonderful.
Good, thank you.
Wonderful work.